Before this episode begins, just a quick reminder that we are not professionals in any way. The views, information or opinions expressed in this podcast are solely the views of the individuals involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Opinions expressed by the host and guests can change at any time.
G'day listeners, and welcome to the very first episode of Let's Talk About It. We are your hosts,
Jacob
and Josh, and today we want to tell you a bit about ourselves and what our motivations are with this podcast.
Yeah.
So I'll start off with myself. My name's Josh. I'm 21. I'm from Adelaide.
My name's Jacob, 23, also from Adelaide.
So I guess we should probably start with how you and I, we ended up in this situation.
Well, Josh and I actually worked together. What was it? It's probably been it's almost 2 years now that we actually first met in the warehouse that we do work in, also a freezer.
Yeah.
So, I think you doubled up with me. Yeah, you were helping me with a job, and at the time I was very interested in bodybuilding, and I think I was telling you about a conversation that I had with someone that day, and I started getting into like the bodybuilding ways and like the nutrition, and then sort of felt like, I knew quite something about this sort of thing, but then like you started putting your 2 cents in, and I was just like, wow. He's good. He's good. And then pretty much like after that, our relationship just like continued to progress into like us getting together and like talking. But at the time, I was a little bit more disagreeing with a lot of the things that you said. You were a lot more realistic compared to what I was. But at the time, I was very like conspiracy theorist and wanting to expose whatever truth I thought there was.
Yeah.
But in turn, it was just like, I might just read some books, listen to some books while we're working and just see where it sort of takes us. Yeah. And I think our relationship wanting to like continue going further, at first it would have been like this dominance type thing. But over time, it just sort of turned into something like, let's have a good conversation about something. Let's see where this topic can actually lead us to.
Yeah, I think we kind of went from what could have been considered a toxic relationship, like with the whole bodybuilding thing. Like I'd done PE and nutrition all through high school, year 11 and 12, and so I kind of had all the numbers and that kind of just sitting on the top of my head. I mean, I wasn't that far out from leaving high school.
Yeah,
it had only been like 2 years, not even. And so when you started talking about it, I just started spitting out numbers. And like at the time, I didn't really take it as an ego thing, but I think I kind of realized afterwards. I was like, I was a little bit, a tiny bit.
Hey, I'm flexing.
And like we did continue like that for a little bit. I think we were a bit competitive.
Yeah.
But I think we managed to take something that could have been pretty toxic between the both of us and managed to turn it into something that's actually been quite informative.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of how we actually got into probably interested in learning more, I'll start off from where I started to notice something that I believed I could improve on was when I was suffering with severe anxiety, depression, and a little bit of PTSD, which stems from my childhood, which I can get into a bit later into the next few episodes or something. Yeah, just the anxiety was spiraling out of control, and the thoughts that were going through my mind at the time were, to me, quite toxic. And I sort of got onto a level of knowing that I could be better. I knew that I could do better. So I sort of had that idea, and it was that idea that led me on to trying new things, and at the time quitting my job and then coming to the job that Josh and I are currently at, that I started reaching out into the books. And what I really appreciated about this job I'm in is that I do have the time. I do have the time to work and also listen as well.
Yeah.
So it came in handy. So I think it's been, about a year, a little over a year and a half that I started working. Within that year and a half, I've managed to dive into books on individuality, spirituality, religion, philosophy, at the moment, a bit of economics and political sort of things. But it's definitely been a journey, and understanding a bit about myself and how I can handle myself in a social setting has definitely improved the way I see the world, and I know that I can personally take on more responsibility to handle how I mentally hand things socially and also from an individual perspective.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of me. So
So yeah, my beginnings into this whole thing were very much from a different standpoint. So studying real estate, and before I started studying that, I thought if I wanted to get into this field, I should probably have a better understanding of the economic system that I'll be working within. For me, it was just a better understanding of the reality that I'd be working in.
yeah,
And for me, like, I'm always like, I want to know all that I can know. And it kind of started there. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts. It was podcast Freakonomics and a couple of other ones. It was actually you that got me into the books, because you were talking about a couple of books you were reading, and I was like, oh, well, I haven't actually thought about the like audiobook route. And so I started listening to a fair few audiobooks on different economic and social systems and stuff like that. And it really caught my interest, and we started having discussions about things relating to those subjects, as well as things that we didn't know too much about. And I think it was the whole thing that we were trying to have these discussions, and I didn't know as much about the discussion as I would have liked to have. So it kind of motivated me to learn more. And so it took me out of just learning about economic systems, and I started reading other books about philosophy and individuality and things like that. And it really helped me see things in a different light. I know I reference a couple of books all the time, but there are sometimes you read one of these books or you listen to one of them, or you just be going through it, and there's just like one line or two lines that just hit you, and you're like, fuck.
and it definitely that I said changed the way I see life, and now you're listening to it, you're like, yeah, this is crazy. This book. If anyone's interested, that book is Man's Search for Meaning by, I believe it's Viktor Frankl.
Yep, Viktor E. Frankl.
Yeah, Viktor E. Frankl starts off talking about his studying through psychology or psychology, yes, and then ends up in a concentration camp and starts breaking down the reality of how low man can go into itself and coming back out. His story is very inspiring.
Yeah, and it's definitely, like I say, it's one of the many books that I've kind of read and been like, damn, there's definitely some stuff you can get out
absolutely.
of this. But then also getting a better understanding of the systems that work around myself, and kind of finding out things aren't always the way you think they are, I think has always been a big influence on my want to learn more, just give myself a better understanding. And I think it kind of migrated from that to, I remember you one day, like we were always having discussions, and they got longer and longer and longer and about more in-depth things. Yeah. And it got to the point, I remember you came up to me and you're like, oh, maybe we should have a podcast. And the first time you said it, I was kind of just like, funny. Didn't really take it on board, but I think it was probably a couple months after that. Our conversations were getting to the point where they were actually becoming a problem. Like it was like, we can't have these conversations. Like we need to do something. Yeah. And you said it again. And that time I was like, actually, you know what? I reckon this could work.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the conclusions that we were sort of coming to were just like bits where we would just like pause and look at each other and just smirk, because it was just like, how did we do that? It's almost like this, we unlock this potential that we never saw in ourselves before, and it's just like, do we unlock a new level of ourselves? I'm that dark character that I've earned in the
access
game.
To. And I mean, also a lot of times, like we would disagree on things, and even though we would disagree, it would never break out to like arguments or just getting in each other's feelings. Like it was always a good constructive conversation. And I think that helped with us finding out more quite a bit, because we were able to have those difficult conversations with each other where we didn't agree on anything. Yeah. And we were able to come to a conclusion and understand each other's viewpoints. Every now and then, maybe shift the other person's viewpoint a little bit. Yeah. Even though that's not always the goal. Yeah. And so with starting the podcast, I think for us, it was just an easier way to do all of that, and also puts more self-responsibility upon ourselves. Yeah. To be better informed about the conversations we have, especially if we're putting them out in a public square, because at the end of the day, we're looking for other people's comments, words of advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, even though you and I are going quite in depth into certain conversations, it would definitely be nice to find other people that do have those different opinions and thoughts around what we're talking about. So that way we also can broaden our perspective of a situation. So to us, any person that is going to listen and voice their opinions, we're going to, more than welcome. Absolutely. I'm more than happy to, if I know something, but I can know something better and someone has to offer that to me, that is a huge amount of respect I have for that person. Like
100%.
To be able to voice your opinion, because also saying something in today's world and getting away with it, it can be quite scary. And anyone that's willing to voice their opinion and help me or you understand the world better, I'll hold those individuals to high esteem.
And we'll try and return the favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And in return of what we were motivated to do this as well, is that certain people like myself that have suffered with mental illness and struggle to understand how to get out of these certain situations, it was almost like a moral responsibility to help others understand what they are going through. It was my responsibility to take on seeking knowledge and gaining more understanding about myself. I just feel like I'm at the point now where it's just like I have something to perhaps give to others that are in these certain situations and help them see the light that I now see in myself. So, I think nothing really more I can go into it until we actually get into it.
So, we will go into a broad range of topics, which will make for interesting conversations.
Absolutely.
I imagine.
I'm keen.
So plenty of more episodes to come. We hope you are here to listen in the future. But up until then, thank you for listening to our first episode. We very much appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next one.
See you later, guys.